On this episode, we tried to avoid that delicious sounding strawberry milkshake of death. Welcome back to the Auto Obscure Garage. Chadwick with you again for another installment of Project Xterra, and that is our 2008 Nissan Xterra off-road. On this episode, guys, one of the big things you hear when you're looking up second-gen issues with the Xterra is Strawberry Milkshake of Death. What is that? Well, it's simple. The radiators have a included coolant section for the transmission fluid to come from that transmission pipe on the outside of the radiator and get cooled down. Now, that's a great engineering idea, but what happens is the radiators fail inside, which introduces coolant into the transmission fluid, grenades your transmission over time, and the other way around is getting that transmission fluid in your coolant. Engines don't like that. It's not a really good agent for cooling. So it can cause a lot of big issues, and it's one of the top things you try to avoid with these trucks, the second-gen Xterras. So what we're gonna do on this episode is replace the radiator, which is the original with 180,000 miles. So we got a lucky truck on our hands here. And then we're gonna do the thermostat, which needs replacing, that looks original. And there's still some plastic components that go to the heater core, and those love to crumble in your hands, break apart when you're deep in the woods off-roading. So get rid of that crap. We'll got some metal pieces to put in there, and then we'll put some coolant in there. And that'll be it. We'll refresh the cooling system on our Xterra. Let's get in the garage and get a little dirty. Here's what we need to do this cooling system job. We've got a new radiator here, coil rad unit, good brand, aftermarket, should fit well, should perform well. Coolant, you can go blue or green with these vehicles from what I've researched. I'm gonna use the blue Asian vehicle focused coolant here. I've heard good things about this in these trucks. I've used them in tons of vehicles, so it's good. I think you need about a little over 3 gallons worth, so go ahead and get a few bottles of this stuff. Thermostat, I'm gonna go with an ASIN unit. It's a reputable brand. I think it's the OEM for this. I know it's OEM for Toyota. A lot of other trucks and vehicles use this, so real good brand. Spent a little more there. You will need a gasket. A lot of those don't come with gaskets, so make sure you get a quality thermostat gasket. And then the last piece I'm replacing, at least not concerning the radiator hoses we might have to replace, is this metal unit. It's an aftermarket replacement for that plastic piece that's weeping. So these are pretty cool. You can get these pretty cheap. I got it on Amazon, so hopefully that should resolve that issue. That's it. This is not too spendy of a job. The fluid's kind of the most expensive part, being almost as much as the radiator, but let's go ahead and make this Xterra coolant system as good as we can make it. I believe this radiator shroud is a 2-part system, so it kind of disconnects. So you can pull the bottom part down and the top part up. We still need to access that, and this intake is in the way here. This is an integral part of that. There's a hose back here, a couple 10mm bolts right here. Obviously loosening these hose clamps at either end will allow us to pull it up. We can leave the stock air box where it is, I think, for now. I think we'll have plenty of clearance to work around, but this unit's got to go, so let's do that. Intake tube removed. Now, if this is the only job you're doing is this cooling system, great time to clean out your throttle body. If it's a little nasty, got access to it obviously right here. And your mass airflow sensor, your MAF, is right through here. You can clean that easily too. So you got both of those to work with. And I'm also gonna remove the top of the air box just because I think this little section will foul against the upper fan shroud. So we'll go ahead and pull this up. It looks like it's just a couple little clips, and we can kind of slide it up. And we don't even have to remove it since we're doing this job. We can just slide it back there. You could disconnect the MAF sensor, but no need. But yeah, now we got all the room in the world to pull these shrouds out and the radiator. Something else to think about is when you go to drain the radiator, if you have an off-road trim or a vehicle with skid plates, it's gonna be a challenge. You gotta remove some of these materials. Obviously that plate needs to come out so we can access the radiator. So you'll have some bolts to undo into here, drop everything down, and that way you'll be able to get to the petcock and drain your coolant. So just something to keep in mind. Something I do want to call out too is to get to the radiator brackets up here. You do got to pull your grill. Not too hard. Looks like there's just some push pins, maybe some clips behind that pull it off. Try not to break them all, like I'm going to probably do, but just under here there should be, who knows what size. We'll get a look. There'll be some nuts or bolts holding that down, but To access it, pull these plastic clips off. I can see 4 right now, and that front grille should come off and give you all the access you need. So another little thing you need to do before you pull your radiator. Yeah, of course, after I get the 4 pins at the top, I realize you can pull the grille out a little bit. So to remove the grille, there are the 4 clips at the top. There are a couple tabs you gotta reach down and pinch, and you can remove your grille. Okay, let's go ahead. Sorry, not the best visual. It's kind of dark in here. Right, super light contrast with the light around us, but we're gonna turn that little Phillips petcock for the old radiator. And eventually we should start getting some fluid out of here. Watch out for the splash. Try not to catch as much in my mouth as I usually do. Here it comes. We'll go nice and slow, and then we'll pop the radiator cap and really get this party started. Now we just got to get some of these hoses off the radiator and it'll be ready to get out of here. Eventually, you know, shrouds and everything withstanding. Let's get these hoses out of here. At this time, we can remove these 2 radiator brackets up here, 10mm bolts. These brackets just simply pull off. Boom, there we go. Underneath the front of the truck, there are a couple things we need to do before we can think about pulling that radiator up. You've obviously got your 2 cooler lines that go into the transmission from here. So you want to pull both of those, just simple clamps to take those out. So it's actually a 2-piece shroud here. You can go ahead and unclip the top from the bottom. It's pretty easy, it just kind of pulls down. And what that's going to allow you to do is pull the top of the shroud off. You can pull your radiator up afterwards without having to disconnect the fan or the fan clutch. So let's go ahead, get these 2 hoses and make sure our shroud is separated. Something to keep in mind too is when you disconnect these trans lines, transmission fluid will come out. Now if you're going to replace your fluids, that's awesome. But in our case, since we are adhering to a strict budget, since I don't have it in the budget to do before the Overland Challenge, I have to preserve the fluid. So you can use clamps. I like to stick a center punch that you use for, you know, home improvement projects in there and then slide the clamp back over. And that tends to keep the fluid in there pretty good. Yes, absolutely. If you don't know the condition of your fluid, go ahead and change it out. But in our specific case, I'm going to try to preserve that fluid. So just be aware when you pull these off, you're going to get a bunch of trans fluid coming out. See a little dripping of fluid right here. That's that transmission fluid that's in the radiator. So you can see the hose I disconnected, and there's my center punch in there with the clamp moved back down. It seals perfectly. I'm not going to lose any more transmission fluid. Now, though I can't do a full transmission fluid replace right now, it would be a great idea to top it off because I did lose a little bit, the fluid that was in the radiator obviously. So before I go on my adventure, I'm going to top off the transmission just a little bit with some fluid I have kicking around. Won't count against my budget, but this is a good way to do it if you're trying to keep your transmission fluid. All right, now with everything disconnected underneath, we do have the condenser for the AC unit that's still attached here. It's 2 10mm bolts. They're a little pain in the butt to get to. You can actually, with everything else disconnected and these brackets off, we can flex a little bit to get access right here in the front. One there, one on this side. Let's get those off of there and then we can talk about getting this radiator finally pulled out. We're going to do a final check over to make sure we've disconnected everything. Actually, I see something already. We've got the connector, electrical connector going to the fan. We need to free that, disconnect that clip. All right, we got the electrical clip. Got a couple connectors where it goes. Just tuck that out of the way now. That's your fan connector. Next, I want to take up the upper shroud, which is just 2 10mm bolts right here. Well, that's how you get it out. It wasn't pretty. There's the shroud. Here's the lower part you can take off. Still a pain in the butt getting around that fan. To completely avoid the struggle you guys are about to see me go through, you can see I've got the radiator out with the fan still attached to it, the electric fan. You could actually undo this 10mm bolt right here, and you can access this by pushing the shroud back a little bit if it's still in the car. So pull that little bolt out and lift this straight up. And you can remove that right from the radiator, and then your radiator will just slide right out. Now with the shroud out of the way, condenser separated from that bottom bracket, radiator should pull straight out and away. We're almost clear. There we go. That was annoying. So this next step is something totally optional. You do not need to do this, but I want to clean up the front of the motor. There is a lot of dirt and debris from off-roading, some oil that has come down from the valve cover area and worked its way around, just pure nastiness. And I don't want to put the car back together all nasty like that. It's hard to spot leaks, it's hard to all that other stuff. I just want it to be clean. So I am going to remove the fan and fan clutch. It's just a bunch of, it looks like 10mm nuts holding it on to the water pump, as is usual on most vehicles. I can't tell, I think it's 6. I want to guess 6 or 5 of those nuts. I'm going to remove it, just pull the fan out of the way. You guys don't have to do this, but if you want to, it's super easy. Just reach down with a ratcheting little 10mm wrench, take it off. Don't necessarily want to pull the pulley off, but keep it on. You can pull your whole fan and fan clutch out just like that. Now we can actually get in there and clean. And I don't think I need to say this, but if any of your belts look nice and gnarly, these ones actually look to be in good health. But if you're cracked or any frayed edges, go ahead and do your belts at this time. Real easy to access these belts. As we continue to overhaul the Xterra's cooling system, we have a thermostat that hides right back here, and it would be foolish not to do that while we're in here. Probably the original, let's be honest, 180,000 miles. Nothing's really been touched on up here, so I'm guessing that thing's original. To get to it, we simply need to remove these 2 hoses. There's a little coolant hose here, and this is your lower radiator hose, believe it or not. So the other end of that, we'll remove both those, just standard hose clamps. Then we'll have access to 3 10mm bolts, which we'll pull out, and then we'll pull the whole unit out. For a replacement, I went with an ASIN unit. I believe they're the OEM manufacturer. At least they are for a lot of good vehicles out there. A trusted unit. I don't want to have to do this job more than once, so let's get it in there. Something you do need every time you do this job is a gasket. A lot of times they don't come with a gasket, the new thermostats. So here we are. Here's a new gasket. And you don't want to reuse the old one, because to put all this back together, fill it with coolant, and then find out it's leaking would be a pain in the butt. Let's go ahead and do this job by taking those hoses off first. Ow! Ooh. Ah, that hurt. Yeah. Okay, that sucked entirely. But now we have the thermostat exposed here, pretty gnarly looking. So there are 3 little bolts we got to pull off. I believe they're 10mm. One up here, one here, and one underneath that little neck here. This one's part of the timing cover, so I don't need to take him off. Here's what that hardware looks like. You got your 3 little bolts here. They came off the thermostat. Time to pull the unit out. Oh yeah, here we go. Pretty gross looking, been in there for a while. Let me see if there's any markings on it to denote it being an OEM one. Gasket looks to be in good shape. Again, this wasn't leaking or anything. It's just while I'm in there, maintenance item for sure. Not sure if you can pick this up on camera or not, but you can see Nissan written there, right here. So this is the original thermostat, 180,000 miles, no issues. And they don't build them like they used to, do they? This is a pre-economic collapse here in the US, 2008 model, so was built in 2007. Yeah, they really put effort back then into these parts, but yeah, original thermostat. Compare the new thermostat with the old one, just to make sure you weren't too crazy when you were late night parts ordering and ordered the wrong model. These look like exact matches for one another. Again, this is the ASIN, this is the original Nissan. I mean, absolutely identical. So let's go ahead, put the new one in with that new gasket. And before you do all that, actually, go ahead and make sure the mating surface is clear. I used a little scuff pad to go around. You want to make sure there's no more old gasket material and no corrosion. All those things can prevent a good seal and cause leaks in the future, if not immediately. I also polished up the old hardware, making that look shiny. Because we're putting new shiny parts in, can't use old nasty hardware. We gotta shine that up too. As far as torque specs go, these bolts should be tightened to about 6.7 foot-pounds. So not too much. Don't crank these things too hard and break them off. That's not a good scenario. Now that our new thermostat's all torqued down, time to put the hoses back on. We'll do the lower radiator hose first, and we'll make sure that clamp is somewhere where I can access it in case I need to do this in the future. New thermostat and new gasket installed on the Xterra. There are 2 very weak plastic coolant connectors going to the heater core on this Xterra. I hate how OEMs choose to do this. I know it's cost cutting and whatnot, but this one here has already been done by the previous owner, so that's huge. The other one is this other heater core hose, and this one is also leaking currently, so they didn't do that one, they did the big one, which is nice. So I sourced an aftermarket replacement. Now I think it's pretty straightforward. I think you just release these band clamps and can pull it out. Here's the replacement. As you can see, it is metal instead of plastic, and it has a hose section that should clamp onto the old. This is the metal replacement to replace that plastic part that will fail at the worst time possible. Can you guys see that? The thing actually broke off. That's probably what was leaking, the plastic. Oh no, it's just crumbling in my hands. God, just like my old Volvo did. All right, let me make sure I get all those pieces out of there. Yeah, this is why I hate plastics in like cooling systems. And just like that, we have guaranteed that we will not be having any broken plastic pieces going to our heater core on this adventure. That's a huge fix. I'd recommend anyone, yeah, look at that, it broke right off. Yikes. I'd recommend anyone with one of these vehicles to go ahead and do that. Out of this world. Ooh, good peace of mind there. All right, we have the new radiator compared to the old one. There are some things we have to harvest off of this old one. We got to take the side mounts here that allow it to mount up to the vehicle. And it has a little bracket on the back side of this where the condenser for the AC unit goes in there. That's important. So these brackets are pretty straightforward. Just to show you guys how that goes, there's two 12 millimeters on either side, and then they kind of pop off, and we'll just put them on the new one. So let's go ahead and pull those off the old one first. That's where we'll start. It just slides up and out just like that. That's the bracket. We'll be attaching it to the new radiator. Okay, we're on the side of the new radiator. I'm just gonna take that bracket we took off the old one, line it up nice and easy like, and just slide it over this little piece right there. And then we'll put our 12 millimeter bolt right back in. All right, nice and solid. All right, do the other side, and our new radiator is ready to go in the vehicle. Now, putting everything back into the truck, I'm actually gonna do it the right way this time. We're gonna go, you can see our fans back in there. I didn't have to remove that, but it did make the thermostat a lot easier, and I was able to clean up behind there, which, you know, I always want to do. But anyway, the order of operation here is radiator's gonna go in, then we're gonna position the condenser on those little brackets, so that's together. I wanna slide the shroud in next, which I'll put in there, and then slide the bottom piece, and then we'll slide down the fan and clip that onto our new radiator. Everything looks clear, everything looks great. The fitment is fantastic. Next step we want to do is, while we still have this play with the radiator, is connect it to the AC condenser. Remember those screws from earlier. Okay, time to put our radiator brackets back on. Now, the new radiator doesn't come with insulators, these little rubber caps here. Mine are in good shape, so I'm just gonna reuse them, but you know, if you're not following a strict budget, you could get new ones. It just keeps the vibrations down, but again, mine are working pretty good. We're gonna go with it. Now it's time to drop our old friend in there, the big shroud. It should go well this time since we don't have the fan attached to the radiator at this moment, so we might have a little more wiggle room. Let's give it a shot. We'll do the lower portion afterwards. So gonna simply slide the radiator fan down in this gap. There's a couple little brackets it sits on down there. Much better. Still a little tricky, but way better than what we were dealing with before. Now we want to go through and make sure we attach all our hoses. New radiators don't come with a cap, so I don't advise you to use the old one. A lot of times that rubber is getting cracked and can make a pretty nasty leak. So we've got a Gates one right here for the 2008 Nissan Xterra. See how well she goes on. Oh, gorgeous. With everything back together under the hood, it's time to top off our cooling to really close out this whole coolant system refresh. Now, we disconnected a lot of stuff. We added a lot of components. We're gonna add a little bit and then check very thoroughly to see if we have any leaks before moving forward. What you wanna avoid is dumping 10.8 quarts, and that's how much you need for this vehicle, of this really good coolant. I mean, it's pretty good coolant, but it's gonna get the job done. So 10.8 quarts. Again, let's dump a little bit and see if she's holding. All right, everything looks good under the vehicle. Checked around the engine bay. No leaks, so we might have got it right this time. Let's add the rest of this coolant and find out. Now we're still about 2 quarts shy and it's showing full on the radiator. So what I'm gonna do now is jack up the front of the Xterra. That way this is definitely the highest point. We're then gonna run it full heat on blast, so we're circulating coolant to the heater core, get all that going, and then it will open up more space as that air bleeds out of the system, and we can put that final quart in and hit our full capacity. So yeah, let's get this up high, just a regular floor jack, get it off the ground. And again, just run it till it goes through a couple heat cycles, adding coolant as necessary as the air is displaced. We don't need anything drastic here, just tires a little bit off the ground, and that'll give us that angle we need to burp the cooling system even more effectively. First start after all this work is always a bit exciting. God, I hope everything works well. Okay, done burping. Ran the truck for about 30 minutes. No more air bubbles coming up, so I cut it off. It did take an alarming amount of time. It took about 10 minutes before the heat started blowing hot in the vehicle. Had me worried there for a second, but gave it a little throttle, kept it going. After about the 10-minute mark, I started getting hot air through the heater, so that was the rest of the air getting pushed out of the heater core. We're good to go now. This thing's ready to rock and roll. What I'll do is I'll let it cool back down, lower the vehicle down, and then I'll top up the reservoir and radiator as I need to. Burping the cooling system is done, and we're done with our complete cooling system overhaul on our Project Xterra.